unity of this House in terms of the origin of the decision makers implies also that the members of this House do not come, for lack of a better word, contaminated by local politics. And number three, this House, in terms of the architecture and design of the Constitution and the decision-making process in this matter, is expected to bring the much desired objectivity in this process. The Honorable Kawira Mwangaz'A also takes this opportunity to reflect on the constitutionally prescribed grounds for removal of a governor from office. Mr. Speaker, sir, we appreciate that this was one of the first orders you took members through, because it is critical that throughout this process, we keep this criteria at the back of our mind. The drafters of our Constitution grafted grounds using specific adjectives. Number one, gross violation of the Constitution. I've been asking myself, why not just violation of the Constitution? Number two, where there are serious reasons for believing that the county governor has committed a crime under national or international law. Again, I was reflecting on the question, why not just reasons to believe? Why serious reasons to believe? Number three, abuse of office and gross misconduct. Again, I was asking myself this question, Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished senators, why not just misconduct? It's our humble submission that it cannot be for nothing that the framers of our Constitution and the law used these descriptive words. Whereas the Constitution and the statute do not give us a definition of gross misconduct, the Supreme Court of this country, an important institution in giving meaning to our Constitution, has supplied us with meaning of that term in a process that involved the removal of a judge from office. This was in the case of Muya versus the tribunal appointed to investigate the conduct of Justice Mati Muya. And in the interest of time, I will just pick out the attributes that the Supreme Court said constitute gross misconduct. The Supreme Court used the following words: it must be atrocious, it must be colossal, it must be deplorable, it must be disgusting, it must be dreadful, it must be enormous, it must be gigantic, it must be grave, it must be heinous, it must be outrageous, it must be odious, and finally, it must be shocking. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the Apex Court of the Republic of Kenya, giving all of us guidance on how to deal with matters such as this. I also observe that the rigorous standard that must be applied to the removal of a governor in office, let me withdraw that. Let me say, number one, the standard for removal of a governor in office, taking into account the adjectives used by the drafters of our Constitution, as defined or as interpreted by our Supreme Court, suggests that the process must be rigorous. And I was trying to rationalize it. Why did the lawmaker insist on such a rigorous standard? It must be consistent with the rigors of assuming the office itself, because the process of assuming the office of governor is not mild. Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished senators, I am aware that there are members sitting in this House who have attempted to vie for office of governor, and they'll bear with me witness that that process is rigorous. In the case of Meru, it must be borne in mind that there are 772,000 registered voters whose voices were heard, and out of those voices, Honorable Kawira Mwangaz'A assumed the office of governor of Meru County. That is a rigorous process. Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished senators, the Honorable Kawira Mwangaz'A beseeches this House to employ the above test as what we describe as the constant north, the guiding star in these proceedings. What the governor is telling this House in simple terms is this: do not be preoccupied by the allegories from Europe. Look at the evidence before you. The law of evidence, which my learned colleague, Dr. Mudomi Tenkolu, has taught for many years at the university, presents as follows, honorable senators. Evidence is not counted. Evidence is weighed. Eventually, put this evidence on the weighing scale and come to a consensuous conclusion that can we, in good conscience, remove a fellow citizen from the high office of governor on the strength of the material presented before us. Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished senators, one may ask, and this evidence that the governor has presented here, where was it before the assembly that undertook the first impeachment process? The Hansard of the assembly will bear the governor out, that the governor's legal team went before the assembly with this evidence and asked the speaker of the assembly, direct us on how we present this evidence before you. And the speaker of the assembly ruled that both the legal team and the governor herself were, in parliamentary parlance, strangers and could not table material before that assembly. Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished senators, 2,400 years ago, that great Greek philosopher, Socrates, is documented to have prescribed the 4 essential attributes of anyone who sits in the position of a judge, as you do today and as you will do tomorrow. He observed, and I quote, 4 things belong to a judge: to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, and to decide impartially. Distinguished senators, today and tomorrow, in relation to the business that keeps us here before you, you sit as judges. The humble plea of the governor, Meru County, to this distinguished House is that you apply this 4-part Socratic test. And that if you do that, she asks for no more favor. The chips will fall in their place and she will naturally be vindicated. The governor has furnished evidentiary material before you in the nature of, number 1, her response, affidavits in support of that response, an index of annexures, which are documentary exhibits, and 2 flash disks with various video clips that will contextualize for you what the political atmosphere in Meru is. Despite that political atmosphere, which is the reality in which this governor operates, the Controller of Budget report has indicated that this governor leads a county that has a 71% absorption of its development budget. Honorable Senators, you sit here oversighting many counties, and you know better than I do the degree of efficiency one requires in this country to even achieve that feat. The latest InfoTrack research, which is less than a week old, has ranked the Honorable Governor Kawira Mwangaz'A among the top 4 performing governors in this country. And that is the person that is presented before you and who has been treated to the descriptive epithets that the Learned Counsel for the Assembly have described just a few minutes ago. We had the privilege, Honorable Senators, of following debate on the motion on whether this House will go the committee way or will go the plenary way. And we were persuaded by the following submission by members of this Senate. We want to know what is happening in Meru. Evidence will show you, Senators, what is happening in Meru. When you look at the evidence presented before you by the County Assembly, and I emphasize that because the burden of proving these charges is the burden of the County Assembly. Because at the end of it all, this Senate has to make a finding whether the charges, my apologies, have been established or have been proved. That evidence by the Assembly will fall into 9 broad categories. You realize, Honorable Senators, that all the evidentiary material before you presented by the Assembly is information that was generated between August and September 2023, solely for that period, for purposes of these impeachment proceedings and nothing more. So you'll be told there is a complaint by a public-spirited citizen before the EACC. And that complaint before the EACC is the basis of these impeachment proceedings. You'll notice all that material is generated between August and September of 2023. You'll be told there is a summons before the County Assembly that was disobeyed. When you look at the record, you'll discover that summons was issued in this period. So you'll see a period where there is a spirited, deliberate design to generate material to start an impeachment process. The second category of evidence, or claims, my apologies, the second category of claims, and some of these may be overlapping, is you'll come across claims before you whose evidence is claims elsewhere. We are claiming before you that the governor is misusing county resources, not because the Auditor General's report says that, not because we have evidence from IFMIS saying that, no, because there is another complaint before EACC saying that. So use a complaint as the supporting material for the complaint before you. The third category is that all the claims made before you, we shall be asking this Senate to seek clarification by way of asking, and we shall be asking this Senate to bear in mind as it makes a decision, which of those claims shows what action or inaction on the part of the governor. The county government is an entire system of government. A lot of things may happen. A county government driver may be driving and may knock down somebody on the vehicle. That's a wrong. The question we'll be asking is, how do you tie that to the governor? So of all these claims, we shall be demonstrating to you that there's a failure to show the causal link between the case presented before you and the person presented before you for removal from office. The fourth category of matters will be what you call, my learned colleague gave me these words, dead matters that have been resurrected for purposes of infusing an element of meaning to this motion. You'll discover that the claims and the supporting material before you will be the same claims and supporting material that were presented before this Senate a while back, as again the same governor, and this Senate voted to find that those claims on that material, that very material now coming before you, did not pass the threshold for removal of a governor from office. You will then come across matters that are pending before other constitutional bodies. Complaints pending before the courts, complaints pending before EACC, over which no determination has been made that's adverse against the governor. Then the fifth category, my apologies, the sixth category, is you will come across very contradictory claims. Very contradictory claims. Allow me to just demonstrate this by way of example in two cases. When you look at count 5 of the grounds in support of the impeachment motion, you'll see a claim of contempt of court. You'll see that claim. When you look at ground 1, in particular, sorry, count 1, my apologies, count 1, ground C, you would say a claim that the governor paid full salary and benefits to Dr. Ntoiti, Paul Mwaki, Kenneth Kimathi Mbae, and Joseph Kathure Mbae. So you're accused of contempt of court in one count, you're accused of paying salary and benefits in another count. First, the Senate will reflect on the question whether the function of employment of these employees and their remuneration is a function of the governor within the county government structure. But for now, let me just inform you that the act of paying these 5 people is actually in compliance with that very order. So you comply with the relevant county government official delays to comply with the order to pay, he's accused of contempt of court. He complies by paying, he's accused of making the same payment to the same people. Good people in good conscience, that is the case in respect of which the governor has been most dramatically described by the assembly side's representation. The next category of claims will be claims focusing on the person of the deputy governor. Focusing on the person of the deputy governor. I will address some of these claims briefly in the interest of time in my next limb. The next category of claims are just plainly false claims. One of the hardest part of my preparation for this case is how you prepare to respond to a lie, apart from saying, but it is a lie. It is not true. For example, you'll get a claim that somebody by the name Kathure Rukaria, James Karimi, Lady Ankatha are relatives of the governor. They simply are not her relatives. I mean, how much more do you say to that? You'll be told that the governor has employed Rose Gwantai and Kenneth Gwantai in the county government. These are employees of the National Police Service. They are police officers employed by a completely different constitutional body. Honorable Senators, you know better than I do that as protected state officials, the level of latitude one is given to consult with the authorities in the police service for purposes of allocating new security. You don't become an employer of that person. You'll be told that the governor has embezzled county funds through one Miriam Gwantai. That's what you'll be told. The evidence in support of that will be some attachments in pages 17 all the way to page 29 of the exhibits in support of the impeachment motion from that side. You will then go there looking for the name of Miriam Mwangaz'A as a recipient of the money. You will not get it there. It's just false. You'll be told that Nefat Kinyua is a brother-in-law to the governor. I have had to reflect on the meaning of the word brother-in-law. We have presented before you a marriage certificate of Nefat Kinyua, because the name brother-in-law is a relationship that arises out of a marital relationship. To show you who he is married to in a monogamous union. That person is neither a relative of the governor nor the governor's husband. So I don't know how one generates a brother-in-law relationship outside that context. You'll be told that the governor has employed Edwin Mutuma Murangiri, a nephew of the first gentleman. Evidence will show that Edwin Mutuma Murangiri was employed by this county in 2017. This governor became governor in 2022. So even if she intended to employ him, did she re-employ him a second time? Those are questions that this Senate will have to deal with, just factually incorrect statements. Edwin Mutuma Murangiri is not related to the first gentleman as a matter of fact. So it is false. You'll be told that he is one of the people through whom the governor is swindling county funds. We'll then take you to the IFMIS extract that they have presented and ask, show us the name of Edwin Mutuma Murangiri receiving any sum of money for any purpose in that IFMIS extract. You will not get it there. It's just false. Then there are some falsehoods that are also very courageous, senators, because they also lie about this Senate. You'll be told that this Senate, so to speak, stopped the governor in the last impeachment exercise from running the private charity project dubbed Okolea. You'll be told that. On that one, we think this Senate will be our witness, that you didn't do that. You'll be told, for example, 2 county vehicles, KAX 574V and KCB 845F, were damaged. First, they are described as county vehicles, damaged in one of the Okolea charity events. We have presented before this court official searches from the National Transport and Safety Authority, which can be the only source of information on who owns this vehicle. These are private vehicles not owned by the county at all, just falsehoods. And you're told, honorable senators, that the governor has assigned diplomatic duties to her unqualified sisters. I was reviewing the law on this. Function number 1 in the 4th schedule of the national government, function number 1 is foreign relations. So how does the governor engage in foreign relations? Just falsehoods. You'll be told the governor has named a public road after the husband. I was reflecting on this, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable senators. If you were to tell the assembly side to take you to Meru and take you to a road named after the first gentleman, you'll get the meaning of what is called a wild goose chase. You'll not get to any particular road located anywhere called the name of the first gentleman. Instead, they will tell you, let us remain on Facebook. There's some post on Facebook somewhere. Then you'll come across just distorted claims. Distorted, misrepresented claims. For example, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable senators, you run offices here and know that your offices here are supplied with hospitality supplies. Some sugar for your guests, some soft drinks, some water. So somebody will go to IFMIS and find an entry, hospitality supplies, which are things ordinarily bought from petty cash interest. They will make a report and say these are hospital supplies in their report to you to create an impression that this person in the governor's office is actually supplying our hospitals. And I mean, how do you deal with that, honorable senators? These are the things that have been brought here. When you hear my learned colleagues on the other side making very dramatic representations, let me manage your expectations. There is something called an anticlimax. You'll be told that the governor is culpable of bullying, undermining, and posting insulting and demeaning messages about the deputy governor. This is a sad claim, and I must emphasize this. I want you to finally contextualize this matter. There is a video clip that will be played here of the deputy governor chanting with a group of youths in Meru County, chanting the following slogans. Kawira doesn't have a home, oh yay, oh yay. She doesn't have a home, oh yay, oh yay. She's a prostitute, eh yay. She's a prostitute, eh yay. Mutuma, kindly strategize, eh yay. You'll see that is the video that the governor replies to. And the governor says in reply to that video that is calling her a prostitute, that I cannot be intimidated and I cannot be cowed by these childish, mannerless, mobilized people. You'll be told, no, focus on these words, that I'll not be cowed by these childish, mannerless, mobilized people, but forget the video she is responding to in the same WhatsApp group, calling her prostitute. Honorable senators, the voting that you make in this Senate is a constitutionally prescribed voting governed by your conscience and your oath of office. The bundles presented by the assembly side are suddenly bigger in volume than the bundles the governor presented here, because as I told you, how do you respond to a lie other than saying all these 100 pages are a lie? Then you keep quiet. They've given you a big house, big in stature, but if you look carefully at the pillars of that house, if you look carefully at the columns of that house, you'll discover that their constituent material are biscuits. We urge you to accordingly vote, putting that house of biscuits on the weighing scale and see whether it will collapse the scale as a dominant consideration in your voting in this matter. And that is the governor's opening statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the audience.
Let me take this opportunity to thank the parties for keeping to the time schedule. I believe going forward, if we keep it to the way we have expeded here now, we should be able to cover ground. Now, we are moving to adjourn the House, but just a matter of housekeeping. Lunch will be served to the parties, both the county assembly and the governor side. You will be served with lunch. You'll be guided accordingly as to where you'll have this lunch. We will, of course, later on resume. Therefore, don't take lunch and disappear, because we will need you here at 2:30. Now, honorable senators, kindly be upstanding. Now, honorable senators, it is now 4 minutes to 1 p.m. Senator Karen.